Hello, I think this is episode number 9. Still in these olive trees. I actually spent my whole life out here. I camp under one of these trees. Okay, let's see. I'm wandering around and checking out this area by the bees that I can't remember if I mentioned in one of the previous episodes, but today I wanted to talk about culture and the current nature of talking about politics and the discourse and the way everything's become extremely polarized. Look, I think that's where the bees are, but I want to look at it because I like rocks. It does not look climbable. And I know there's bees by that trail, so I guess I won't go closer. But yeah, I feel like what happens a lot nowadays is this dynamic that I read a few articles on it, but I also just kind of was thinking about this. But there are two examples that I think about is there's a certain game or dance that results in a gridlock, and it results in each side. It's two different sides, and each side is just pushing as hard as they can against each other, and it just leads to exhaustion and burnout, and there's no slack in the system. So the two examples I'm thinking of are one, the nature of political discourse, especially with it's a two-party system, but also just the nature of it right now. Particularly, it feels like we're in this dance where each side is just extremely venomous against the other, and there's sort of a zero tolerance for someone who is 1 or 2 increments away from you on the political spectrum, and sort of this insistence that the other side is the one that sucks and is wrong, and they deserve they're clearly in the wrong, and both sides are saying this. So okay. And then the other example is an anxious avoidant dance in relationships where the anxious one is just pressing harder and harder and harder to get closer and closer and closer, and then the avoidant one is blocking, shutting out, and avoiding harder and harder and harder. Sort of a really closed door, or a locked door, and then someone hammering on it. And in both of these examples, it both sides are just the nature of the game or nature of the system or the culture is one in which it encourages you to push harder and harder and harder. It's you can't tolerate someone who the moment you have a little bit of slack, it feels it's actually going to cause devastation, or the end of the world, or you're gonna lose, or things will fall apart. Maybe the moment you have some bit of slack, you will be harmed, like, you know. And when I think about the politics example, it's sort of like we have to bias further on our end to convince, sort of like swing the middle, or like to push to, because the other side is so biased on their end. And then like the relationship example is like, oh, I have to like really try to connect, because if I don't connect, then like I'm going to be hurt and abandoned and like lost, and he's never gonna talk to me. Or like the opposite side of like, I need to take space, because if I don't take space, then he's going to like get me, and like you know, go past my boundaries. So like yeah, this is sort of the game or dance or culture that I want to talk about, and how like just somatically you can feel how it feels awful for your nervous system. And like I'm like tense just describing it, and it does not feel sustainable. It does not feel healthy. It doesn't feel like it makes any sense. Like there's another sort of like meme floating around where it's like everyone will not just, and I feel like everyone will not just do whatever you're asking them to do so that everything will be perfect, you know, like everyone will not just. And so also look, beautiful. So there's a little trail. So like, yeah, I guess going back to either of these examples, each side is like, well, if everyone would just, like, I guess with politics it's like much more of like this grand collective scale, societal scale, versus a relationship is like two people. But like either way, it's like everyone is not going to just do it your way. Like they're just not. Like this is because they disagree, you know, it's like the whole thing. And so what we need, or like, I don't know, it's just what I've been mulling over, is like, how do we create a different game or a different culture, different system? And how can we create one where, like, if someone disagrees with you and is like, I don't know, has a few differing ideas from you or a different way of dealing with things, how can we create like a third, more spacious system that allows for like a difference in opinion? And what would that look like? And it would be like welcoming differences, and I think it requires a lot of like inner capacity to feel like something that is really personal get like poked, and to feel like your own nervous system, like to feel the beginning of a trigger, and then be able to like take a deep breath and lower, and like do so in a way that like doesn't trigger the other person, and to be welcoming to discourse, and like hear each other out, and not just like hear the point out, but like try to feel it somatically in your body, try to like feel their feelings instead of just like responding. Because like I think people are really good at responding with like a counter argument, but like that means to me, when it's like a really fast counter argument, it feels like they haven't fully felt and absorbed the essence of your message. So yeah, I think one kind of norm I see as being helpful is like this like yes and way of discourse, which can be hard when you're like, no, you're wrong, but like the idea is that even if they're wrong, you use this yes and like pattern. It's like a pattern of discourse, which it comes from improv, but you use that to show you the path. You use that to like, what it does is you can build upon what they're saying and support the original statement even while giving constructive criticism and like adding more information and like allowing the original person to actually revise or come to their own conclusion of their own volition, instead of sort of like you like strong arming them into that. And yeah, the yes and is also just like a way to respond in general to people's comments that makes them feel like you aren't just immediately shutting them down. So yeah, again, that doesn't mean you can't like disagree. It doesn't mean that you can't bring in like counter arguments. It's just like one pattern that I think is good and helpful for like creating more slack in the system. So, all right, see you guys.